Hey everybody, this is Kris Castro. I'm the community manager of Fo1, and today we've got a guest, Chris Easley, who we're going to interview. So let me invite him as a speaker. So Chris, come on in when you see the invitation. And until Chris gets here, I would encourage you to just sit back and enjoy. Please put your name in the chat and have fun with the conversation. Let's see. All right, let me try and send that invitation. Oh, let me send that invitation again. There we go. All right, Chris, you should have it now. I don't know why it didn't work the first time. Hey, Chris Simmons, good to see you. So when we post the recording, because we always post the recording, if you have any questions for Chris, or if you have any questions for me or the organization or anything, feel free to put those in the comments. I monitor all the posts, and I'll be happy to answer those as well. Chris, if you're having any issues getting in, just put something in the chat, but you should have the invitation. Oh, you declined it. Okay, let me try it again. Let's see. Invite as a speaker. Okay, I sent a second invitation, Chris. Hopefully that one will work. Yep, got it. Just resent it, Chris. All right. So this week we are talking about neighboring. Actually, this whole month we've been talking about neighboring in the community, and it has been so fun to watch everybody comment and to hear Mike's live streams about that. And we're going to actually have a roundtable this week to chat in a little bit more detail. Chris, you're in. That's fantastic. I don't see your face. I just see a little itty bitty video picture of you.
Let me see. I just gave the camera permission.
Okay. I can hear your voice, so at least we're
Yes.
halfway there.
Yes, yes. Well, it's great. It's great to hear your voice too. I'm looking at my camera. It says it's picking me up in the test. Let me click save, see if that changes anything.
Nothing there.
Start it again.
Here we are. Oh. I see you. Fantastic.
Hey, this is like the liturgy in the Zoom and remote call world, right? We check our devices and then we celebrate when it's all working.
Well, it is good to have you here. I'm very excited to introduce you. Tell us a little bit about you, your work, your family, anything else you want to share about you.
Sure. So it's great to be here, and it's really a privilege to get to collaborate with Fo1. And so just a little bit about me. I am bivocational, so I do two different roles. One role is I work 3 days a week at the regional food bank in my part of the country. So that's Northern Illinois Food Bank. And I'm a corporate development officer there. So I do fundraising with companies and other organizations that partner with us in our mission of making sure that everyone in Northern Illinois has the food they need to thrive. And then I also lead a small ministry called Mission Central, which primarily serves local churches, but also has some online resources. And our vision is forming Christians for mission in everyday life. So we have a big emphasis on faith in the workplace, and so very much shared heart with Fo1. When Mike and I first connected, it was at a conference that we were both interested in about these things, and quickly realized that we had a very similar heartbeat for helping others see how their workplace can be a place of life with God and mission. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I was listening to a podcast today, a spiritual director podcast, and they were talking about the host had a guest who had been in like full-time whatever work she was doing, and then she made the comment, And now God has me in full-time ministry. And I immediately went back to what Mike always says, which I have learned to adopt, is that we're all in full-time ministry. We just happen to have roles in different places.
Yeah. Yeah. And that comes home to me in a lot of different ways as I connect with friends. I realize I'm sometimes an encourager where somebody assumes their job isn't really a kingdom of God job, and I want to reassure them, like, no, it is. It's something where God is working. And I see that in my own family too. My wife Katie is a hospice nurse practitioner, and that maybe that one's a little bit more obvious, like a quote unquote helping profession. But I definitely believe that she's doing the work of God in that role. And that can be true for all of us, even if it's less obvious and not a helping profession or in a for-profit context.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think your organization and our organization is really trying to do, is reshape people's perceptions of work. And I'm so thankful for the Faith at Work movement, which has been helping people do that. Tell me a little bit about some of the work that you do and the people you work with. And I know you can't name names, but tell me a little bit about how your work and that transformational shift has made a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, I think one way is where I get to see some overlap between my work at the food bank and the work of Mission Central. So with Mission Central, one thing that we're often doing is leading courses at local churches, courses about faith in the workplace, courses about evangelism. We're hopefully piloting a course soon about mental health and how do we tackle mental health challenges in the workplace as Christians and still be faithful in ministry to others. And so when I'm leading these courses, I'm preaching, right? I'm not literally, but I'm getting a message out there, right? Then when I go to the food bank, I'm practicing what I preach, where it's like, okay, how am I living out what I just told a bunch of other people at this church on Thursday night, on Friday morning when I'm at the food bank? And that's been really rich and really encouraging that it's been such a fruitful context for mission. So a couple ways that's true. One is that it reminds me that even when I'm just doing the work of my job, raising money for the food bank, that's kingdom work. Even though the food bank isn't a Christian organization, even though we have people of all different faith backgrounds that are part of our team, and also among the people we serve, I know that if I'm doing my work in the name of Jesus and as service to Jesus, that He's going to bring it into His redemptive purposes. And so it's nice to always be reminded of that as I remind others of that in Mission Central, And the second way is it has been a really fruitful context for evangelism too, and just having healthy spiritual conversations. So about a little over a year ago, fall of 2023, I gathered a couple friends and we started a discussion group at work that meets on Thursdays at lunch. And sometimes we talk about social things, sometimes we talk about political things, sometimes we talk about spiritual things. Basically, all the things you're not supposed to talk about at work, we've created a space where you can talk about those things. And we have a real diversity of participants in that group too. Some irreligious people, basically secular, some Catholics, some evangelicals like me, others as well, people from other traditions. And so that's been a really fun space to give permission to people to ask questions and to share perspectives about what really matters in life in a way that's maybe hard to get to in normal workplace conversations.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be an interesting fly on the wall type of situation.
Yes. Yeah. And there's political diversity in the workplace too. And in almost every workplace, unless you're in a specifically political workplace, championing one perspective. And so when we're talking about something in the news in that discussion group, not everybody agrees about what we're talking about, but we've been able to build enough trust in that group of how we have those conversations where it's like we're listening to each other, we're respecting one another, it's okay if we disagree. If you do that groundwork, then it's like people are actually interested in talking. And I think that just as that can be true for hot button issues like politics, it can also be true about faith. As long as people know they're going to be listened to and they're not going to be condemned or judged, then suddenly you can talk about anything. And that's really exciting to me because that means there's opportunity to share the good news in really natural, organic ways in the middle of those conversations.
Yeah, and it takes the pressure off because, again, I always say you're not in charge of converting, you're in charge of sharing. That's it.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's not our job to make something happen. It's our job to show up. So
Exactly. And you have a podcast too. I've caught a couple of episodes of your podcast. Tell us a little bit about that.
yeah, so our main course that we run at churches is called Finding God at Work, and our podcast is also called Finding God at Work. And the podcast is basically a podcast version of what we cover in that course. So we do it in series, so series of maybe a dozen episodes each, kind of looking at different topics. So right now we're in the middle of our third series, which is all about sharing your faith. So the title of the series is Gentle Witnesses, sharing the good news at work in a way that actually makes sense. And kind of looking at that in terms of sometimes we can feel awkward about spiritual conversations. How can we have them in a way that makes social sense? And then also, how does the good news help make sense of life, right? Like people are asking questions, and the good news kind of provides a way of looking at reality that can help with those questions. And so that's been really fun to focus more specifically on evangelism and on listening in the current series. But we tackle a variety of subjects. So the next series coming up in a few weeks is going to be about mental health in the workplace. So kind of drawing on that other course that we used. And so that it's just another way to make this available to people. So people don't have to come to a church in the Illinois Fox Valley region to participate in the course. They can listen in on the podcast. But I really have enjoyed how interactive it has been, even though it's primarily like a teaching podcast. It's 10 or 15 minutes of teaching from me twice a week, and the occasional interview. People have been texting and responding and letting me know how much it blesses them, which to me makes it worth it to keep going and keep offering it.
Well, that's great. Well, Mike Henry Sr. just joined us. He must have gotten back from his meeting. So hi, Mike. Great to have you here. Great to have Kris here. So Kris, you were on I think it was the last Marketplace mission trip, or was it 2 mission trips ago?
It was 2 to go, not the one that just finished, but the one before that in
So
November.
it was the last one at the end of last year in November.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about your experience, because that was your first Marketplace mission trip, and I'd love to hear how that went and what you were surprised about, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so it was funny because when Mike and I were talking about, hey, we have ministries that have this similar heart. What could we do together? Mike was like, well, just come check out what we're doing at the Marketplace mission trip, and maybe you'll learn some things you can use. So I kind of went in with the attitude of, oh, I'm gonna steal all of Mike's best ideas and use them for my ministry. But then once I actually was there, I was just amazed at how encouraging it was for me personally in my food bank role, particularly. The teachings that Mike provides, the prayer times that we got to do as a group, and also the specifically in the second week when there are some more challenges for, hey, here's something that you could do that's missional, in this day of work. It all lined up with opportunities that I had at the food bank. And so it, rather than coming in as like a fellow, ministry practitioner, I just came in as a Marketplace missionary, really. And it was really rich for me in that way. So I've been thinking about other Christian friends I have who I could encourage to hop in on one of these. It really does just create that framework, that window of, wow, I'm looking at the same work week that I always have, but now I'm looking at it as mission. So how does that change the way I approach it? And so much of life is just having that readiness to approach things in the presence of God and with faith. And so I felt like the kind of framing that the teachings and the prayer times gave was really powerful and really simple. You could still fit it in while doing a full-time job, and be present. So I was really grateful for it.
Yeah, we always say that it's not meant to be one more thing. It's meant to actually weave seamlessly into what you're already doing. It's just an intentionality. So that fits really well with what we were hoping. I know you showed up at several of the gatherings and you got to meet so many people from around the world that are involved in our organization. Share a little bit about that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that really stood out to me about the prayer times, because my ministry, well, obviously our internet stuff is scalable anywhere, but the in-person stuff is very geographic. I'm like focused on one little area of Illinois, the Fox River Valley area, and there are 600,000 people in that area, so it's still a big field, plenty of work to do. But it was really cool to be in a context that was more global on the prayer calls at Follower of One. So I was just reviewing my notes of the different countries that were represented. I think on our marketplace mission trip, we had a participant from Pakistan. We had Stephen Cruson from Ontario. We had Octavian from Tanzania. We had a number of people from the United States. Some of whom had other international experiences, though, like Brenda, I believe, was it's still part of the United States, but from Puerto Rico. And so it was just really cool to see, wow, we're all coming together, not just from different work backgrounds and different vocational backgrounds, but from different national backgrounds, different ethnic backgrounds, different context backgrounds. And we have this shared heart where we believe the work we are doing today is part of God's mission in the world. That was really invigorating, to pray in that way, with such a broad range of people.
Octavian's actually in Mikestown in Oklahoma, so he's here, but his heritage is from there. So.
Oh, okay. I might have misunderstood that, but that's great.
Yeah, it's really neat. I know I run most of the mission trip and I get to interact and meet so many cool people, and their stories are amazing. They all come to the table with hearts for Jesus. They're all at different places and seasons of life, and the wisdom in the room when we talk and discuss the lessons, it's amazing how we grow because of each other in the room.
Yeah. And I also think that was something that continued a little bit. So James from the UK, he and I connected very briefly on just one of the prayer calls. But then we also kept chatting using the community forum, and the messaging system there. And so that was encouraging too, to like, he had a prayer request about an upcoming kind of social political issue that his ministry was looking at in the UK. And so we were able to follow up after the decision came down and see how he was doing. And so that was meaningful too. It's one thing to read something in a newspaper headline or a social media post. It's another thing to actually talk with a Christian who's doing something about that issue in that place. So that was something that I really, it made the reality of these different things we read about in the news come home to me with encouragement, because so often we read news stories and we just feel discouraged, right? But it came home to me like, hey, I know somebody who's doing good work on that issue. I can pray for them. That's a way I can respond to what I'm reading about.
Yep. Mike in the chat, he put people from all over with a shared heart. Great point. So he loved that point. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about other things you're passionate about that you want the community to know about you, since this is Meet Follower of One. So what kind of fun stuff should we know about you?
Yeah. So I have a very topsy-turvy vocational journey, which is more normal than ever, right? It seems like the exception now is studying something and then going and doing that for a whole career. But that's been both a fun experience of having to wear a lot of different hats, and getting to learn and try different things. And it's been a spiritual journey of God meeting me in the unexpected and even in disappointments. So when I was in undergrad, I was studying to be an ESL teacher. So I'm still technically a fully qualified ESL teacher, K-12 in the state of Illinois, but I've never done that. Then I ended up working in church and college ministry roles for the next 5 years. Right out of college, some opportunities opened up there. I went to seminary and thought I would always be working in the local church and never work anywhere else. But then plans changed. I ended up working at a mortgage company, which I had never expected. The last math class I had taken was as a junior in high school, and I didn't know anything about finance, but just sort of took to it pretty well and learned a lot by doing. And then got laid off from the mortgage company when mortgage rates skyrocketed a couple years ago, which is how I landed at the food bank, which has been another unexpected but really strong fit for me. Love the mission of the food bank. So in those years, there was a sense of grief and loss, because I had thought that I would be a pastor by now. I thought I would have been ordained as a pastor a couple years ago and doing the normal preaching every Sunday thing, and that would be my life. And so I had to let go of that to the Lord, but then realizing that God has kind of given me back that vocation in a different form, where I'm still shepherding people. I'm just doing it while I'm at work. I'm doing it through the work of Mission Central, and in the future, who knows? Maybe I will circle back around to a more traditional pastoral role. We'll see what God does, but I don't have to wait for that to live out the vocation that God has given me with my spiritual gifts, which has been a huge game changer for me to realize that I don't have to be afraid of doing one thing for work and creatively finding ways to express my ministry vocation, in that and in other ways. Whereas before, I was terrified of the idea of being in the marketplace. I thought that would inhibit me from doing ministry. So that's been a big part of my journey, but has also produced, like, to your question, like, just fun things that I like randomly know. It's like I know a lot about language theory, know a lot about how mortgages work, and like how mortgage companies actually make money by selling them off in the secondary market. And it was a great timing to work for a mortgage company right before buying our first home. It's like, oh, now I understand this document I'm signing. I actually understand it. How often does that happen?
The 30,000 pages that only a lawyer can understand.
Right.
For the people who are watching, hey, Yashua, I think he's the one from Pakistan that you met, Yashua. So he's in the chat. If you guys have any questions for Kris, please put them in the chat, or questions for me, feel free. I think the last question I have, unless somebody else puts another question in the chat, is for the people who are watching the recording, give them a little bit of advice about how to integrate their faith and work more seamlessly so that it doesn't feel like a burden, but it feels natural.
Yeah, totally. I think so. One kind of hero in my life is the author Dallas Willard. I have his book Divine Conspiracy right here. This book changed my life probably more than any book outside of the Bible. And he has a great little section in here about the glory of your job and how God's glory is made manifest in your daily work. But one of his ideas that he expresses is on the spot versus off the spot. And so, like, often we feel like we're on the spot, right? Like, maybe somebody asks us a spiritual question at work, and then suddenly we're like, oh, we're anxious, we want to say the right thing, or maybe it's a really stressful situation at work, and we want to model Christ-like character, but we're so anxious, we can, when we're on the spot, it feels like it's too late in a way. And so when we think about the whole faith and work conversation, I think Dallas's idea of like off the spot training is super helpful, where it's like, hey, if you can build time rhythms into your week where you just have dedicated space to be with God, that's really what's going to prepare you so that when you're on the spot, you can minister in Jesus' name and with Jesus' character. So it's not like we have to cram everything into the middle of our workday, although weaving stuff in is really helpful, like the Marketplace Mission Trip does. Sometimes it's that time that we take away in a little bit more of an intentional way that really gives us the spiritual breathing room, so to speak, to be ready when opportunities come up. So that's one thing, is maybe the best way for you to show up at work is to protect some time that's not for work, right? Protect some time for Sabbath, for connection with God, for life-giving relationships. And if you're particularly wondering, like, wow, I just wish I could have some time to dig into work, this whole idea of faith and work more, protect some time to look at the resources from Fo1, and learn here about these ideas, or other ministries. I'm always trying to be like a little infomercial man for other ministries. if you want to know how to start like a discussion group, kind of like the one I mentioned at the food bank, the ministry Qplace has wonderful coaching. Qplace.com. If you're interested in what I'm doing in my neck of the woods, we're launching an online version of that Finding God at Work course soon, and we're gonna have a discount coupon for follower of one participants. So
Nice.
um, yeah, so take some time off the spot, do some learning, and then trust that when you're on the spot, God will give you what you need.
Yeah, Mike's got a question, but before I ask it, one of the things that I've really come to realize is that personal off the spot. And another name for it is really a contemplative lifestyle, where you are setting aside time to be with Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, to have that quiet time to receive and be with no agenda sometimes. And even if it's just silence and you're fidgety and you don't think anything happened, I've learned if you do it often enough, you bear fruit, even though it feels like nothing is happening along the way. Would you agree?
Absolutely, yeah. Sometimes people call it the principle of indirection, right? You apply a whole bunch of effort in one direction, and it seems like you're not making very much progress. But then when you zoom out, suddenly there's fruit somewhere else, right? And so often it's not one for one. It's not you work on this and then you see fruit there. It's you work on just being open to God, and then you see fruit everywhere.
Yeah. Well, Mike's question is, can you share an idea for how to be a blessing for others during a work week?
Oh man. Um, so I have two thoughts that immediately come to mind. One is to get as good at your job as you can, right? Like the main way to love other people at work is to do a good job at your job. And sometimes we underestimate that, where competence is a ministry. That's a Timothy Keller idea. The ministry of competence. We make the glory of God visible when we do our work well. So whatever resources you have for like personal development, professional development, getting good feedback from your manager to improve at what you're doing, like invest in that so that you can serve others by working well. And that was one of the marketplace mission trip focuses as well, delivering excellent work, right?
Mhm.
So totally agree on that point. My second thought is to, which can be in tension with the first one, is to get really good at being interrupted. And I'm preaching to myself on this one. So often when I'm deeply focused on a problem, trying not to be disturbed, and somebody comes by my cubicle, it's like, oh man, the last thing I want is to pay attention to them and what they need. But I think that being interruptible is a really wonderful way to love other people. And so there's trade-offs there. Sometimes you may need the lock the office, do not disturb sign for some deep focused work. That's legitimate. But we also need space where we're accessible to people. And so building that into your weekly rhythm in some way, I think is a wonderful way to be a blessing to others.
Yeah, it a lot of times, and it depends on if you're in an in-person environment or a virtual environment. Because, like in a virtual environment, I'm really not accessible unless I pick up the phone. No, I'm really not accessible unless I'm logging into a meeting. But a lot of times the Holy Spirit will prompt me. Like this morning, I was busy, I was doing a bunch of things, and the phone started. I got a text from somebody, and it was a friend of mine, and she, we text, we talk, whatever. But as soon as I saw the text, I knew something was wrong. And it wasn't that
Mm-hmm.
she said it, it was that I knew. So I called her, and it turned out that there was some stuff and she needed to talk. And so I was able to interrupt my morning for her because she needed it. And that's also a fruit of when you spend time with Jesus, is your spiritual radar gets better over time.
Yes. Yeah. Spiritual radar is a great metaphor. I think that our Henry Nouwen, a Catholic writer, he talks about our interior life and how there's always things that are bubbling up inside of us and can feel chaotic, right? He once said that he feels like his interior life is like a bunch of monkeys in a banana tree, screeching around. And so if we're not taking time to attend to our interior life and let God bring his peace to that chaos, we won't have the room to attend to other people's interior life. And so I think that really contemplation and action go together. When we're taking that time off the spot, receiving God's peace and ministry, it actually empowers us to be present on the spot in a more significant way for the people around us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I don't see any more questions in the chat. So thank you, Yashva, Mike, and Chris for hanging out with us. Thanks to everybody that's going to be watching the recording. Chris, it's been a pleasure, and we really do look forward to collaborating with you, and just kind of being there to help each other, because there's no competition in the kingdom. And so what we have is yours. What you need, let us know, and we're happy to support and encourage you along the way.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here, and I hope to be present in the community forum, and who knows how else in the future. So
great. Well, cool. And hopefully you can join us maybe for the next mission trip in a couple of weeks.
Yes, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. But we're really grateful. We're really grateful and grateful for how God is ministering to others through this ministry. So
great. Well, for those that are watching, we do have a mission trip coming up in the middle of March. If you're in the community already, just look on the left-hand side in the current and upcoming mission trips. You'll see it's mission trip number 38 for March. This Thursday, we've got a roundtable to be talking about our theme about neighboring. And so we hope you'll join us for the roundtable on Thursday. And thanks again. So everybody have a great rest of your week, and we will see you in the community.
See you
Bye-bye.
there. Bye for now.